Helen, a woman nearing her 56th birthday, shares her story of resilience and determination. After losing her beloved husband to cancer 5 years ago, Helen found herself navigating the challenges of living alone. The void left by her husband's passing was profound, yet she slowly adapted to her new reality. Helen's husband, a dedicated businessman, had been a pillar of strength in their lives. Their love story began unexpectedly through a mutual friend and blossomed into a marriage filled with joy. Together, they welcomed their son, Kevin, when Helen was 24, and 6 years later, their daughter, Laura. One day, Helen returned home to find her room spotlessly cleaned but shockingly empty. Her daughter-in-law, with a laugh and no sign of regret, revealed she had cleared out the room for the betterment of the household. Confused and alarmed, Helen followed her gaze to the yard, where she witnessed her clothes and personal belongings engulfed in flames. Among the items being destroyed was a cherished painting given by her late husband. The daughter-in-law's actions, marked by malice, seemed to suggest she was attempting to rid the house of Helen, whom she disdainfully called a parasite. Despite the harshness of her words, Helen made a heart-wrenching decision to leave the house that had been her home. Yet, she was not defeated. Helen vowed never to forgive her son's wife for her actions, igniting a fire of vengeance in her heart. This turn of events marked a new chapter in Helen's life, one where she would rely on her strength and the memories of her husband to navigate the future. Despite the pain and betrayal, Helen's spirit remained unbroken, ready to face whatever lay ahead with grace and determination. As someone who had dedicated her life to being a homemaker, I always believed in the value of hard work, a belief that was equally shared and appreciated by my husband. He recognized my efforts and, thankfully, left us in a comfortable financial position with ample savings and assets. Life, however, is full of unexpected turns. One day, my son Kevin announced he would be returning home soon, claiming his work had settled, allowing him a short break. I was thrilled at the prospect of seeing him again. It had been too long. Yet, amidst my excitement, I overlooked a critical detail. Upon Kevin's arrival with a simple, "I'm home," I realized my oversight. Kathleen, Kevin's wife, was with him. My relationship with Kathleen had always been strained. She had a knack for looking down on me and had never missed an opportunity to make cutting remarks, even before their marriage. Despite my reservations, I greeted her with a forced smile, which she returned with a smug grin. They planned to stay overnight, a detail that was news to me, and Kathleen made herself at home with unsettling ease. Their 3-day visit left me emotionally exhausted, challenging my hopes for a return to a peaceful daily routine. About 2 weeks later, Kevin approached me with a conversation that set off alarm bells in my mind. He hesitantly revealed that Kathleen wanted to move in with us. The reason, according to him, was her concern for my well-being, a notion I found hard to believe given her lack of direct communication. Kevin assured me their relationship was fine, though his tone lacked conviction. I realized I couldn't burden my son with this situation and decided to take matters into my own hands. I resolved to speak directly to Kathleen, believing that a straightforward rejection from me would be enough to dissuade her. After ending the call with Kevin, I pondered the idea of living with my daughter-in-law, recalling her previous behavior in our home as if she was evaluating it for her own purposes. The thought confirmed my decision. Inviting Kathleen to live with us was completely off the table. I found myself in a situation that required delicate handling. The idea of living with Kathleen, my son Kevin's wife, was something I simply couldn't agree to. Determined to resolve the matter swiftly and avoid further complications, I reached out to Kathleen the following day to discuss her proposition of moving in together. Kathleen's voice was brimming with anticipation when I called, indicating she had already envisioned a life under the same roof. However, when I conveyed my decision against it, there was a pause, a sign of her surprise, perhaps disappointment. She tried to argue that it might be beneficial for me as I aged to have someone else in the house. While she expressed concern for my well-being, I reassured her that I valued my independence and was perfectly content living alone. Initially, it seemed Kathleen had accepted my stance, and I hoped this would allow my life to return to its peaceful routine. Unfortunately, that peace was short-lived. A few weeks later, Kathleen showed up unannounced, eager to discuss a new proposal, a trial period of living together. Without waiting for my consent, She made herself comfortable and outlined her plan, suggesting that we could always part ways if the arrangement didn't work out. Caught off guard and aware of the potential for lasting consequences, I questioned if Kevin was aware of her latest scheme. Kathleen brushed off my concerns and called him in my presence. After their conversation, Kevin apologized for Kathleen's forwardness and proposed a compromise. He believed agreeing to a trial period might actually encourage Kathleen to abandon her plan once she realized it wasn't feasible. Reluctantly, I agreed to the trial, harboring concerns about how Kathleen's presence might affect our household dynamics. The initial phase of our cohabitation went smoothly, but the atmosphere shifted as Kevin increasingly found himself tied up with work, apologizing for his inability to contribute at home and suggesting he'd handle the finances instead. With Kevin away on a business trip, the responsibility of managing our daily lives fell to me. Despite my reservations, this arrangement was now a reality, setting the stage for a period of adjustment and unforeseen challenges within our home. The moment Kevin left for his business trip, Kathleen's demeanor shifted drastically, exposing a side of her I hadn't seen before. During one of our shared meals, she criticized my cooking, comparing it unfavorably to dog food with a scornful laugh. It was clear that she no longer felt the need to maintain any facade of politeness. Her complaints continued, escalating over trivial matters like laundry. Kathleen insisted that I wash her clothes separately to avoid them smelling like an old lady, a demand she made with a heavy sigh of frustration. Then, announcing her plans to meet with friends, she left the house without offering any help, leaving me to manage everything alone. I reached my limit when Kathleen's behavior became increasingly intolerable. I warned her that I would discuss her conduct with Kevin, hoping it would prompt her to reconsider her actions. However, Kathleen was unyielding, claiming she was living with us out of goodness, a statement that bewildered me given her actions. Her defiance escalated to the point where she threw a picture frame at me, a cherished photo of my husband and me, showcasing a disregard for anything but herself. In the aftermath, Kevin assured me he would return home soon to discuss everything in detail. 5 months into this fraught living arrangement, I finally spoke with Kevin about ending it. He seemed unsurprised by my call and agreed without hesitation, signaling his return was imminent. Just 5 days before Kevin's expected return, another unexpected turn occurred. My daughter Laura arrived home, her sudden appearance hinting at yet another shift in our lives. Laura revealed the painful reason for her return. Her marriage had ended due to her husband's infidelity. This series of events underscored the complex dynamics of family life, marked by challenges, unexpected changes, and the need for resilience in the face of adversity. "You're welcome to stay here as long as you need, considering everything you've been through," I offered Laura, although I quickly had to brief her on our current living situation involving Kathleen. "Yes, Kathleen's been staying with us. Kevin will be back from his trip soon, so we'll sort things out then," I explained. Laura, understanding the delicacy of the situation, assured me, "I might be new to this situation, but I'll help out as much as I can." Her support was a comfort to me during such a tumultuous time. Upon Kathleen's return home and her discovery of Laura's presence, she inquired about it. Laura's response was simple, noting she'd be staying for a bit due to personal reasons. Interestingly, Kathleen seemed to take a particular liking to Laura, possibly seeing her as a sister figure due to Laura being older. This unexpected camaraderie between them suggested an opportunity for us to navigate the situation more smoothly. The day Kevin came back marked another episode of Kathleen's discourteous behavior, as she rudely pushed past me at the door. Her actions and words continued to astonish me with their lack of respect and sensitivity. Later, as we all gathered for dinner with Laura, who had returned home after a long while, we experienced a rare moment of tranquility. Kathleen, perhaps in a better mood, began to drink more than usual. Despite warnings from us about her drinking, Kathleen insisted she was fine, even pressuring me to join her despite my aversion to alcohol. As the evening progressed, Kathleen's behavior became increasingly erratic due to her intoxication, leading to Laura eventually helping her to bed. With Kathleen asleep, the rest of us seized the moment to discuss the future of our living arrangement. We agreed it was time to conclude Kathleen's stay with us, a decision that required Kevin's agreement, given that Kathleen was his wife. This conversation was crucial, as it meant addressing the strain Kathleen's presence had put on our household, while also considering Kevin's feelings and the impact on his marriage. It was a delicate balance between maintaining family harmony and asserting the boundaries necessary for our well-being. Admitting my role in allowing our household situation to spiral out of control, I pondered the correct course of action. We were all feeling stuck, unable to come up with a viable solution as time marched on. It was Laura who broke the silence with a pivotal question that none of us had truly considered. Why did Kathleen want to live with us in the first place? This question made me pause. Despite the tension and the discomfort Kathleen's presence had caused, I realized I had never directly asked her, or Kevin for that matter, about her motivations. Kevin, when pressed, could only recall Kathleen expressing a vague concern for my well-being, though he seemed skeptical of her sincerity. He speculated that perhaps Kathleen had her eyes on our spacious house, an idea that seemed all the more plausible given her behavior both before and after moving in. Laura then proposed a strategy we hadn't yet considered, sparking interest and a bit of concern about its implications for me. Yet, after giving it some thought, I recognized it might be the breakthrough we needed to move past our deadlock. Encouraged by Laura's initiative, we agreed to proceed with her plan, keeping it a secret from Kathleen for the time being. 3 weeks later, we had everything in place to implement our strategy, although we were aware of the potential for rejection. To mitigate this risk, we resolved to approach the issue of Kathleen's living arrangement collectively, planning to execute our plan in 3 days. The day before our intended discussion, I informed Kathleen that I would be stepping out for a while and expected to return by evening. Her response was surprisingly cheerful, which I found odd but didn't dwell on, focusing instead on the anticipation of a significant change. My only concern was the prospect of leaving Kathleen at home by herself, especially given the delicate nature of our plans. This moment represented a turning point, a chance to finally address and potentially resolve the ongoing tension in our household. Eager to reconnect with a friend I hadn't seen in ages, I momentarily forgot the tensions at home. Returning around 7 p.m., I discovered Kathleen, my son's wife, emerging from my room. Her greeting, claiming she had cleaned my dirty room, immediately set off alarms. Confused and alarmed, I entered my room to find it completely empty. Kathleen, with a laugh devoid of any guilt, informed me she had done it for the good of the house, leaving me utterly perplexed. Following her pointing, I was horrified to see my belongings ablaze in the yard. Among the flames, I spotted a painting, a precious gift from my late husband, now being consumed by fire. Kathleen's face, twisted with malice, made her intentions clear. She was trying to erase my presence, referring to me as a parasite. It was then I decided to leave, not only the house, but also the toxic environment she created. As I vowed revenge against Kathleen, her last words to me, questioning if I was okay with leaving, echoed in my mind. I didn't need to see her face to know the smugness it wore. I immediately called Kevin and Laura, informing them of my decision to move to the new house sooner than planned. As I set off for a fresh start, free from the strife Kathleen had brought into our lives, I looked forward to reuniting with my family in a place where we could hopefully find peace and rebuild. Settling into the new house, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for the fresh start that lay ahead. The arrival of Kevin and Laura only heightened this excitement. They were taken aback by the beauty and size of the house, curious about how I had managed to secure such a place. I explained that it was through a connection of their father's, a friend who informed me the house was available. It reminded me of our old home, so I didn't hesitate to make it ours. As we enjoyed our time together, the conversation eventually turned serious. We agreed to share the new address with Kathleen, anticipating her inevitable visit given her persistent nature. I braced myself for her reaction, ignoring the flurry of messages and calls that soon followed our decision. A few days later, Kathleen appeared at our doorstep, visibly weary. Despite the nerves, I was reassured by the presence of Kevin and Laura. Kathleen's confusion was palpable, as she questioned why we were living in such a luxurious place. Her inquiry led us to the living room, where the confrontation unfolded. Kathleen seemed taken aback by our financial capabilities, mistakenly assuming she might be part of this new chapter. Her smile faded as Laura clarified that the living arrangement was meant for us alone, excluding Kathleen. Her surprise turned to disbelief as we explained the reason behind her exclusion, her disregard for my feelings and the destruction of my most cherished possessions. The accusation that she might have been after the house or money left Kathleen speechless, her silence confirming our suspicions. This moment marked a turning point, reinforcing our decision to start anew without her influence, focusing on rebuilding our family bonds in a space filled with hope and devoid of past grievances. Amidst the grandeur of our new residence, Kathleen questioned its lavishness, hinting at her disbelief that such a lifestyle could be maintained without imposing on Kevin. It was then Kevin clarified the misunderstanding that had evidently taken root in Kathleen's mind. He revealed that throughout their time living with me, I had borne the cost of all living expenses, a fact Kathleen seemed unable to grasp. Her shock was palpable, as she initially denied the truth before attempting to ingratiate herself, suggesting a fresh start and inclusion in our new life. I couldn't help but find humor in her sudden change of tone, her plea to reconcile. Yet, with a gentle but firm grasp of her hand, I labeled her the true parasite, suggesting she take a moment for self-reflection. Kevin's intervention, siding against the unjustifiable behavior of his wife, marked a turning point. Kathleen's attempts to garner sympathy and support crumbled as it became evident that not even her husband stood by her actions. The revelation that the house, the one she had hoped to share, was solely in my name, underscored the finality of her exclusion. Her subsequent outburst, a tempest of rage and desperation, forced us to call the authorities. As Kathleen was taken away by the police, her furious gaze lingered, but her departure brought a profound sense of relief and justice, particularly for the disregard she had shown towards my cherished memories. The ordeal, though shocking, was deemed necessary for our family's peace. The responsibility of what comes next rested with Kevin, but for the first time in a long while, we looked forward to tranquility and the opportunity to rebuild our lives without the turmoil Kathleen had introduced. After the tumultuous events that transpired, I made it clear that cohabitation with Kathleen was no longer an option for me. I trusted Kevin to manage the situation appropriately, and with Laura and me by his side, we were ready to support him through the next steps. The divorce between Kevin and Kathleen was inevitable, but far from straightforward. Kathleen's emotional outbursts during legal meetings were attempts to sway the proceedings with her tears and loud protests, yet Kevin remained resolute, unaffected by her dramatics. Witnessing her desperate attempts at manipulation was both shocking and sad, but it underscored the necessity of their separation. Kevin's firm stance in the face of Kathleen's pleas was a turning point for us. It was as if he was finally seeing through the facades that Kathleen had maintained. His decision to divorce was met with my silent approval, a sentiment echoed by the rest of the family. We were united in our desire to move forward, leaving behind the chaos Kathleen had brought into our lives. Her subsequent silence marked the beginning of a much-needed peace, lifting a burden I hadn't fully acknowledged I was carrying. The aftermath of their separation revealed Kathleen's precarious situation. Without a job and now estranged from the family, she found herself drifting from two friends' house to another. Her decision to become a housewife had left her without professional skills or employment, a reality that was both a consequence of her choices and a new challenge for her to navigate. As we settled into our new life without Kathleen, I reassured Laura that our home was her sanctuary for as long as she needed. Despite the painful memories associated with the past, not all were lost. The love and memories of my husband still lingered, untouched by the recent turmoil. Together, the four of us looked forward to rebuilding and moving towards a brighter, more peaceful future, one step at a time.